Alright, to summarize and oversimplify things, the Roman Church took over Germany by replacing the Merovingian line with Pepin, and then took over southern France by replacing the Visigoths with the Guilans. So they always use conflict in the region between religious groups, and then they install puppet kings who are declared kings only under the Emperor of the Church of Rome. Now, southern France goes on to be a very important part of the story. However, the Church of Rome had to focus their attention to other places in the world, empire, due to the rise of the Nation of Islam in the east and the Viking invasions of Western Europe. So let's start with the Vikings, who are also called Normans. So Vikings or Normans are from Northern Europe, from countries like Denmark and Norway. They invaded Western Europe, meaning they invaded Germany, France, and Italy. By the early 900s, the Norman Vikings had secured a territory in Germany and attempted to take over rule from the Franks. But in 1000 AD, the Carolingians had converted the Normans to Roman Catholicism, and the Viking Normans also took a feudal state, which means they joined the Roman Catholic hierarchy, the same as the German Franks, the same as the French Visigoths, and the same as the Middle Eastern Jews that had settled in the southern France region right above Spain. Now, you all should remember the Carolingians, who were basically Pepin's family, who took over the Merovingian line in Germany. So the Carolingians end up teaching the Vikings warfare on horseback and fighting with armor as knights. And I quote the Encyclopedia Britannica. And later, in the 11th century, the Normans began a more prolonged and haphazard migration to southern Italy, where they served the local nobility as mercenary fighters. So the Vikings started off as invaders to Italy, and then they were changed into mercenaries who served the local nobility, meaning they served the Church of Rome, which I usually just call the Vatican. So ultimately the Vatican changed the Normans the same way they change every other group that opposes them. First the German Franks, then the French Visigoths, and last the Norman Vikings, which the Vatican then sent all of these groups to invade the Middle East as what? As crusaders. So the Vatican was now against the Muslim religion, which had become dominant in the Middle East. So the Crusades happened between the years 1095 and 1270, and were a series of European military expeditions directed against the Muslim control of Jerusalem mainly. But they were attempting to take over the Middle East. In 1095, Pope Urban II called for a Christian army to invade the Middle East and recapture the shrine of the Holy Sepulchre. The Sepulchre was supposedly the tomb they locked Christ in for 3 days as he underwent more mind control and torture. So the crusading knights, or the Germans, the French, and the Normans, assembled in Constantinople and prepared to march across what today is Turkey. In 1099, the Crusaders took over Jerusalem and killed its Muslim and Jewish inhabitants. In the following decades, they gained control of the Palestinian coast. They built castles and set up Crusader states under various Roman Catholic rulers, mostly German, French, and Norman. An Islamic leader named Saladin gained control of all Egypt in 1169, and in 1187 he captured Jerusalem and most of all European strongholds. Shocked by the fall of Jerusalem, Pope Gregory VIII called for a third and then a fourth crusade. And from my study, the fourth crusade gets kind of confusing and seems to result in Roman Catholicism virtually destroying their own eastern capital of Constantinople for one reason or another, and that's the Byzantine Empire. Then, in 1212, I quote the Encyclopedia Britannica, a wave of revived crusading fervor in Europe produced the Children's Crusade, where thousands of children were lost and or sold into slavery. In 1215, Pope Innocent III called for another strike on the Muslim world. The Fifth Crusade was manned chiefly by French and German forces, which captured Damietta, then started to march on Cairo when a flood ended the crusade. In the Sixth Crusade, Emperor Frederick II of Germany, who had been excommunicated by the Church of Rome for his many delays in attacking the Muslims, managed to negotiate a treaty which returned Jerusalem to the Europeans for 10 years. In 1244, having been forced west by advancing Mongols, the Turks sacked Jerusalem with Egypt's help. Then in 1268, the Mamluks of Egypt succeeded in driving back the Mongols from Syria. The Sultan, named Baybars, dealt harshly with the Pope's crusaders, many of whom had formed alliances with the Mongols. So the Mongols are this crazy group from Asia who basically attack everyone, but the Pope and his crusaders don't care. They'll utilize any group they can to kill others. And finally, in this report from 1268 to 1291, the Mamluks took back the crusader states of Antioch, Tripoli, and Acre.